So when you open your ad account, you're going to see a box like this. Now, normally that automatic one is ticked right there. You see where it says automatic? But if you tick the other one, it's going to say manual. Now, as soon as that happens, it's going to have a suggested bid right there, okay? And you may be bidding, $1 or $2, or that may be what you're paying, but it's going to pop up with this manual or the suggested manual bid of 40 bucks. And you're like, well, what the crap is that? So let's talk about this first off, okay? This is going to be a little bit scary. The reason it's going to be scary is because it's going to be more money than you are usually, exposed to as far as advertising, okay? So don't let it frighten you. Just because it's new, don't you remember when you first got on the computer, it was all new and things were different. You didn't understand them. But I mean, you think about how you like cruise around the computer. Now, I remember the first time I got on MySpace. Do you remember MySpace? Anybody out there ever do MySpace? Ostra says she's a newbie. Hey, we were all newbies. We were all newbies on this. Nobody woke up one day and knew everything about the internet and everything. And MySpace, I thought was kind of weird, and I never really got into it. But then Facebook came along, and it wasn't so many years ago that I wasn't on Facebook, and now I'm all over Facebook. I'm everywhere. I've got groups, and I've got fan pages, and I've got all these different things in Facebook, and I do live videos. So it's really just about expanding your mind, allowing yourself to accept something new that you don't understand, and that's what you have to do. It's going to be different. It's not going to be what you're used to, and as soon as you do something different, your mind once again tries to put up all these blocks and says, wait a second, this is different. This is not what you've done. You don't want to go in this direction. And your mind's just trying to protect you, okay, from, being scared and different things. And a lot of times people don't want to use all these manual things or these things where you got to get in and start adjusting things because we like it automated. You think about how many things are automated nowadays. I mean, you jump in your car and, when I was a kid, we used to pull out the map and have to, figure out, where it was in the map. And then you have to figure out how long it's going to take you to get there based on how fast you're driving. And now we just put in an address and it says, go this route. I'm going to tell you every single little turn. And in doing so, you don't have to think. Now, we've probably all ran into this before where we're using our GPS and we look at it and we go, well, that's a weird way to go. I wouldn't go that way. I'm not going to do that. And you readjust it because, sometimes automation is not always the best way to do it. It's easier for you and you don't have to think. But, you think of how many young drivers now, when you say, hey, drive me somewhere, they're like, okay, let me turn on my nav. What if they didn't have nav? Could they even get there? I bet a lot of them couldn't even get you to that spot. They may have been there 10, 20, 30 times, and yet they still can't get you there because they've never had to think. And the funny thing is, if you have to think, sometimes you can get even better results. So now that we're all exposed to this automated thing, which some of you on this call may not even be exposed to the automated thing, but somebody says they do remember MySpace. Yeah, that was funky, wasn't it? And it died out. So what this is going to allow you to do is adjust some of these things and get much better results than you could with automated, because automated ads are going to give you okay results, but they're going to give you middle of the road results. You're never going to be able to really scale and do big things. And I'm going to talk about a method later on in this training today that is Tim Bird's method called the bully method. And he spends millions of dollars, not a month, but sometimes a day, millions of dollars a day on ads. Now think about that. Imagine letting that be automated. You can't. I mean, you got to get there and do some tweaks, right? And like I said, you'll never be able to scale big if you do all automation. You just won't be able to do it. You need to be able to get in there and make these adjustments. And I'm going to show you how to do them today. And you're going to have that high level information. Now, you may not use this today. It may be, weeks or months or maybe, way on down the road before you ever use this. But when you get to it, you're going to understand how to do it. And it's also going to help you with the automations. It's going to help you figure things out. So the first thing you want to think about is what happens when you place an order in Facebook. I mean, what does Facebook actually do? You decide, this is my audience, this is my text, this is my picture. Facebook is actually going out there and making all these decisions for you. It's trying to figure out, where do I place these ads, and who's going to see these ads, and how much am I going to spend on them? Am I going to spend most of the money before lunch or after lunch or in the evening, or how much per click? And it has to go through all these things. And when it does that, it uses these algorithms. And these algorithms are based on what's happened in the past, but they may not be applicable to today, right? Or to what's going to happen tonight. So that's why it's really good to understand this manual bidding stuff. So when you enter an auction, and that's what you're doing, okay? Whether you realize it or not, even if you're automated, you're entering these auctions, and there's other people advertising at the same time you are. They're all out there bidding, and they use three different factors, okay? And the first factor is going to be the bid itself. All right, how much of a bid is it going to be? Now, when you do automated, you're saying to Facebook, well, I want to spend 10 bucks a day, so you figure it out. Well, when they've got to figure it out, they've got to figure it out with everybody else's bid too. So you're pretty much in the fray of everybody else's bid. So you're never going to be able to really be ahead of people. You won't be real far behind them, but you're just kind of going to be in the middle of the road. The next thing that Facebook's going to look at is your relevance score. Okay, how relevant is this ad? So when they're factoring in, how much they're going to spend, they're going to say, well, I want to look at the relevance score. And what is the relevance score basically? The relevance score is people looking at your ad going, hey, don't show me this ad anymore, or why am I seeing this ad? Or if they're clicking on it, or if they're buying your product, and all these things are going to go into what your relevance score is, okay? And when you're doing these manual bids or even automated bids, they're looking at your relevance score, okay? And then the next thing is going to be your estimated action. Facebook will look based on your bid, based on your relevance score, based on your text and your picture and all that, and they're going to do an estimation of your action. Now that action could be getting a lead, that action could be buying your product, that action could be downloading your PDF or whatever it is, but it looks at these three things and then it makes its decisions. So let's move on, and then it comes up with a total value, and that's how it comes up with what it's going to say is your suggested bid for these ads. So Facebook is actually going to control your bid too. All right. So what are they going to do? They're going to represent your bid. They're going to say, okay, I'm the guy that's going to be bidding for JR, and I think we ought to bid this right now. That's what's happening with your automated one. And then they're going to set the tier you bid in, and we're going to talk about the different tier bids in just one second. But they're going to actually set that. They're going to say you need to be in this top tier, this middle tier, or this bottom tier. And then the market itself actually decides what you pay, because you got all these other people bidding too, and everything just kind of gets crunched in there, and that's the bid that you're going to come up with. So your bid doesn't necessarily mean it's your cost. Now that sounds kind of crazy, right? Your bid doesn't mean your cost. Why doesn't it mean your cost? Well, because you can bid above or below, what that suggested bid is. People don't do manual biddings very often, and the reason they don't do them, and here's the big reason they don't do them, because of the suggested bid. Okay, they go in there and they go to do a manual bid, and let's say they want to bid $8, to get a buyer, and Facebook says, okay, $40. And you look at it and you go, whoa, I'm not going to spend $40. I mean, I need to be at $8 because, I mean, shoot, the cost of my product is 12 or 13. So there's no way I can do that. But I'm going to explain to you in just a second how you can actually bid more than what the cost of your product is and still come out ahead. Now that sounds insane, right? But you can actually do that. And that's what scares away so many people, is they'll go to the manual bid area and they go to click on it and they go to decide, let's say their cost of their product's 12 or $13, and the suggested bid is 40. And they're like, well, I can't do that. That's insane. There's no way I would do that. But you actually can. You can actually get ahead doing that. And I'm going to show you how in just one second. So there's actually two types of bid you can do, right? You've got an average bid, okay, where you say, well, I want my average bid to be X. And then you've got a maximum bid. Well, that way you're going to say, well, I want my actual maximum bid not to exceed, let's say $15 or $20, whatever you decide what it is. Now, if you're going with average bid, you're picking on average, I'm going to bid this, but your maximum bid may be way higher than what you want it to be. And sometimes it may be way lower. Sometimes it's in the middle. We're going to look at that in just one second. So when we look at these bids, here's an example of it right here. This is an average bid. So if we pick an average bid amount, our bids could be all over the place. If you notice, it starts off at $34 one day, and then 45, and then 33, and then 54, and then 29. And it's just all over the place. But we may say we want our average bid to be $45. Now, in this case here, maybe we're selling something, that our cost is, I don't know, $30 or $35, or maybe it's $50. It doesn't really matter. The point is, we're looking for an average bid on our product. Now, the other way of doing this is what's called a maximum bid. We're going to use an estimated budget utilization. This is what Facebook does. Okay, it's an EBU. And what we're going to do is we're going to say percent of our daily budget that will be used based on our current bid rate. Okay, now that sounds a little heady right now, but stick with me. So right here we have a chart, and we have the same bids here, and we've selected a maximum bid. Now maybe our maximum bid on this chart here, you can see it hit $80 or $81. Maybe that's our maximum. We say we don't want to go beyond that. So we don't set a low bid, right, based on the budget. It doesn't get used. So if we said, hey, we know we could spend $40 or $50, but wouldn't it just be easier if we just say maximum bid's always $5? And I know that way, if my product, I'm selling it for $30 or $40, I'll always be ahead. The problem with doing that is that if you set the super low bid, then Facebook's just not going to allow you to in all the markets, because you have a top market which they know people are going to buy. They just know it. Those people are always buying. Then you get the middle market where they'll probably buy. Then you get the lower market where they figure most people won't buy. It's going to throw you into that lower market if you're always saying my max bid's only going to be $2 or $1.50 or whatever. You're not going to be able to compete. You're not going to be able to, get a whole lot of sales. And what is that suggested bid? Well, the suggested bid is really just an average amount that's being spent to get your desired results right now. Now, the period of time they don't really release. So maybe that's the average amount that's being spent in the past hour to get that result. But 3 hours ago, it was much lower. So don't let that, suggested bid really mess up your head when you see it. It's just the most frequently winning amount for right now, whatever right now is. Right now could have been 10 minutes ago, right? Which wouldn't have any relevance in the next hour or a week ago. So what is your bidding strategy going to be? What are you going to do? This stuff sounds a little complicated, it sounds a little over your head, but it's not, okay? The first thing you can do is you can look at the Facebook suggested bid, okay, and just go with whatever that is. I would not recommend doing that because really there's just not enough data on that. It may be looking at your product and you may be selling, I don't know, a course on makeup, and there's not a lot of data on courses on makeup right now. So it says, well, I know you're selling your product for $10, but how about we do a suggested bid of 50, which is way, way, way above what you want to do. And it scares you, right? So we kind of ignore that suggested bid, and we rarely will go with that. Now, the other form of bidding you can do is called a bottom up, where you start low and you increase your bids, but you got to watch your CPM, okay? If your cost, and the CPM is nothing more your cost per exposing it to 1,000 people. You got to watch that. If that gets out of hand, you really want to watch it. And then the third one is the top down, where you start really, really super high and you start to decrease it really slowly to see if you can keep getting sales. All right. And once again, you got to watch that CPM, the cost per 1,000 people. And then the last one I want to talk about, and I mentioned this early, is the bully method. Now, the bully method is kind of a bizarre method, but basically what we're doing with the bully method is we're saying we're going to knock every single person out of the market. So let's say, Facebook says, suggested amount is $10, to get a conversion. I'm going to go in there and say, okay, no problem. I'll go $50 to get a conversion. Now, obviously, you're not going to be spending $50 for every conversion, but what you're doing by that method is you're saying everybody else has got a $10 suggestion, so I'm just going to go ahead and do $50 for a conversion. Now you say, well, wait a second, I'm only selling a product for 30 bucks. If I say 50 bucks, I'm just going to lose money like crazy. You really won't, because you're not going to be spending that 50. If they're suggesting 10, right? A lot of your conversions may be 12 and 15. Now, occasionally, maybe it'll hit 40 or 50, but it'd be pretty rare. All you're really doing is just forcing everybody out of the market. You could look up Tim Bird, but he's like the master of this. I heard him talk about it in Thailand in December. But basically, what you're doing is saying, I'm going to knock everybody out of the market. And by doing so, I'm going to grab a whole bunch of conversions. I'm going to get a whole bunch of sales. And I'm really going to make my pixel really a good pixel. Because what I've done is I've gone out there and I bought data. I went out there and bought data of people who are definitely going to buy my product. And it's going to cost me some money. And sometimes I'm going to lose some money. But what I'm going to do is really warm up my pixel and I'm going to get a bunch of conversions. Now, why would I want to do this? Well, with the bully method, where we're going out there saying, I'm going to take every single sale there is, nobody's going to be able to compete with me. I'm going to do several things. So we're going to start off, and let's say they recommend $20. You're going to bid $100, but you're going to max your budget at $500. So I may do that, and I may only do it for $500, but I'm going to grab a whole bunch of conversions by doing this, okay? And it may not make me any money, but I'm going to get data. I'm going to get a warmed up pixel. I'm going to get real buyers on my list, and it's going to do several things for me, actually. It's going to push out all the competition, and I'm going to get every buyer there is. So I'm just going to go in and buy up the market, okay? Now, you don't want to do this if you're brand new and you've never advertised before, but we've got a lot of conversions on a lot of products now, and we may go out there and do that just so I can grab all the buyers, not to make money. This is not a money-making thing. This is to grab buyers for my pixel. And why would I care about that? Well, I'm going to get the best buyers. I'm going to get the people who are most likely to buy. And why would I want those people? What's the point in all that? Because there's different tiers out there. Let's look at all the three different tiers. You got the first tier, and this is exactly how Facebook, from what I've heard, what's been leaked, this is what they do. They look at three different tiers. The first one is likely buyers. These are people who are almost guaranteed to buy your offer based on their habits in the past. And you're going to get the somewhat likely buyers, okay? Now, these are people who are probably going to buy your offer. And you'll also get the unlikely buyers. So your offer is going to be put in front of all three of these groups right here. Now, what's that going to do for you? Well, you're going to get better analytics. Since your audience now, the people who bought from you are built with these people, your audience is going to be a little bit better. Now, if you were to bid really low and you get some sales, but you really don't get that many of them, and overall you spent a whole lot of money and you really weren't profitable, it's not unlike doing the bully method. All you've done is you've just spent a little bit less money and you got a bunch of unlikely buyers, so your analytics aren't going to be as good. The next thing it's going to do is it's going to make a better lookalike audience for you. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, if I do this bully method and I spend a ton of money, and I don't necessarily make money. Let's say I spend $1,000 and I only make $350, but I've got a whole bunch of buyers in there. When I go to do a lookalike audience, my audience that I've sold to, that I turn into a lookalike audience, and if you don't understand lookalike audience, you got to go back to one of my other trainings. That's going to be a much, much better audience than it would have been if I had based my lookalike audience on those unlikely and somewhat likely buyers, which is what you're going to get if you bid low. But if I do the bully method and squeeze everybody out and I get all the buyers, that lookalike audience is going to be a whole lot better. Okay. And overall, I'm going to get more sales. Now, they may not be profitable sales, but I'm going to get sales. And since I get sales, that pixel is going to understand, right, who's buying a whole lot better. So this is more of an investment in data. It's an investment in knowing who's going to buy from you. And then I can dial all this back and then go back out there into this lookalike audience and sell more of my product for a profit. Okay. Additionally, if you're doing this, hopefully you should have some type of bump offer. You should have some type of upsell. You should have some type of follow-up. So, what you're doing is just buying this data and buying these buyers by doing this. All right. So, and you're going to get more data, obviously, which is what we want. You're also going to get more quality buyers in your system. Okay. And that's what we want. Because if you always go with these low bids and these automated bids, you're never going to have these really high quality buyers in your system. Now, let's talk about how you're going to increase these. Like, people want to increase their ads, but they're scared to do so, and they're scared to do so rightfully so, because if you do this wrong and you start to scale your ads, you're going to notice that all your traffic's going to fall off, all your sales are going to fall off, and all of a sudden your ads are not going to be working anymore. And I've had a lot of people say this, where they'll do ads and they start increasing it, and let's say they had, they were profitable, they were spending $5 to get a buyer, and they were selling their buyer for $7.50, which sounds really good. But as soon as they increased their ads, all of a sudden their cost to get a buyer went up to $7 and $8 and $10, and all of a sudden they started going negative. And it's probably because they didn't do one of these things I'm going to talk about right now. If you scale your ad and you change your audience at the same time, you're going to have a problem. Okay, you can't do that, and that's what a lot of people tend to do. Or they change their location. Don't do that. You got to stick with the same locations if you're going to scale your ad. Or they start changing their text around. Don't do that. That's going to mess up your ad once again. Or they change the picture. They change that graphic that you see. They change the video in there. These little subtle changes can really destroy, a good converting campaign that you've got going on. The next thing they do is they change the price, or they change their offer. Do not do that. You have to leave all these things consistent. And we use a 20% scaling rule. That's it. You don't want to change it by more than 20%. And here's another thing. You never want to change more than one item in 36 hours. Because what Facebook has to do is when you change something, they got to go, oh, all right, this ad's changed now. Now, if you notice, when you're in your ad account, anytime you make a change, it's not like instantly approved. I mean, sometimes it can be pretty quick, but sometimes, they say, okay, we've got this and we're going to review it. We'll see what happens, because they want to throw it out there and they want to see what they can do to make this work. And, contrary to what you may believe, Facebook wants all your ads to work. They want every single one of them to work. They want them all to convert. And the reason they want this is because if they do convert and if they do work, guess what you're going to do? You're going to spend more money. Okay. They want your money. So let's look at the next thing. We want to increase our daily budget by no more than 20% in 24 to 36 hours. Now you may say, well, how am I ever going to scale big if I do that? Well, think about this. If you just upped it 20% every 2 or 3 days, it doesn't take you but a couple of weeks and you're into some big money. Sit down with a pencil and you'll see what I mean with that. So you can really scale big. Now, the problem a lot of people have with this is they're like, oh, well, did I change this today or did I change this yesterday? I can't remember, especially if you've got, 10, 20, 30, 50, or 100 ads. So in my previous training, I showed you guys how to use automated increases and decreases on your ads based on conversion. And that's in one of my previous trainings. So you may want to go back and look at that, but you can actually automate this. So you can set it up to where, you're going to increase a particular ad 20% every 24 to 36 hours based on what it did, based on the conversion, based on the sales. And you can actually automate all that.